Welcome to the Disruptive podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. Minority Innovation Weekend is a weekend summit dedicated to aiding innovators of color launch tech-focused startups, exploring emerging technologies and showcasing tech startups that have a founder or co-founder of color. During each episode, we will discuss innovation, tech startups, and more. Minority Innovation Weekend. One weekend, endless opportunities. Please visit www.minorityinnovationweekend.org to find out how to connect with us and to register for upcoming events.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to our Fireside chat. We are so excited to be having this conversation today. We have with us the CEO of Fearless Tech. So can you just introduce yourself, let people know who you are and, you're in your relation to the technology sector?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Delali Dzirasa. I'm the CEO of Fearless. We are a digital services firm. Our mission is to build software with the soul. And vision really is how do we create a world where good software powers things that matter? And what that means is, we're inundated with so much technology every single day, right? All the apps buzzing on our phone, all the stuff we play around with day in and day out. But so often that is not the same technology that happens to power things like, let's say, healthcare, things like education, social justice, like all these things that we face day to day. It's not the same tech that powers that world. So Fearless really exists to fit in the gap and to provide services and to bring that technology into that space. I am a lover of technology. I don't know if it's because I'm lazy and it makes things more efficient, but I love how technology helps to get people into this workforce in a way that wasn't possible before. I love how technology helps to solve problems and to automate things and really accelerate a lot of the change we want to see in society. And so I'm a big fan of the startup life. I'm a big fan of tech life in general, and very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are glad to have you. And for those that are tuning in, if you do have any questions while we are having this conversation, feel free to drop them in the Q&A area of the chat. And we are going to be having a Q&A session towards the end of this conversation. So drop those questions and we'll get them answered if we have time. But back to Fearless, when it comes to this name, this is a great name for a company, and many tech companies don't have names that stand out like this. So where did this name come from? How did you get the idea? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's funny. I felt like as a kid, I'd always been, the one to hustle and learn that as a kid, knocking door to door, paper routes, walking dogs, cutting grass, all sorts of stuff. And so, and I had a little bit of formal training and some entrepreneurship programs. But funny enough, as much as I felt prepped to start a company and I felt like I had what I needed to get going and a lot of mentors, I was still terrified. When you get to the edge and it sounds like jump, I'm going to quit my job and do this thing. I was scared. So one of them, it's pretty hard to wake up scared every day. You got a company named Fearless, right? And it was just kind of an internal reminder. So part of it's, really, really personal. The second thing, you hit the nail on the head as far as it is not common in the technology space, right? And where we started primarily in the contracting world, there's a lot of, ABC Corporation and DEF, limited, right? All of those types of things. And so we wanted a name that was going to stand out on that sheet of paper. When you saw the list of companies that were going to be there, we wanted people to stop and say, wait a minute, that's an audacious name. What's Fearless, right? And to dig in. So it was that as well. And just really our reminder to not be afraid to be on the cutting edge, not be afraid to use our voice, not be afraid to stand up and speak up for things that we think are really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw you tweeted something the other day, and I'll just read it so everyone can hear what it says. It says, I talk to entrepreneurs looking to jump out into business all the time. Everything on paper looks good, except they lack that hustle that you were talking about. They come across one issue or roadblock and they are ready to quit. So when you started this company years ago, was there any roadblocks or anything that came along that, made you want to quit, that you could give advice to other entrepreneurs that, may come across the same thing?
Absolutely, right? Most entrepreneurs want to quit. It's not just like one thing that makes them quit. It's multiple things, right? And it's not like in a period of time. I think I woke up earlier this week like I'm tired, right? And so it's not a thing that necessarily goes away. But what I find is as you're able to overcome like all those obstacles along the way, you're building that muscle memory, right? You're building the fortitude to say, okay, I made it last time, we'll figure it out, right? And the more the more you do those things, the challenges keep getting bigger and bigger, right? So it's not like the problems stop, the ups and downs don't stop, but you've learned how to deal with that stuff when they were smaller, and you're able to keep going. What's funny is I had a friend that talked me into running a full marathon with him, right? And this will tie in, I promise, at the end. This was in 2010, I think 2010, 2011, something like that. The Marine Corps Marathon in DC. And I'm a sprinter, right? All through school, I was a sprinter. So if it's anything more than one lap, that is long distance to me. So the thought of running 26.2 miles, right, was a little bit absurd. And so he starts training me for this thing. And I remember telling him, like, okay, this is boring. I don't know how I'm going to run, 20-something miles. This is ridiculous. And I remember him looking at me and saying, you don't have to. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, look at that fire hydrant right there, right? And it was, a couple hundred feet away. He's like, can you get the fire hydrant? I was like, yeah, I can see. I could probably get there. He's like, all right, just get the fire hydrant, right? And so I run to that. And I, all right, now what? And he's like, you see that light post? Yeah, I see the light post. Just get there, right? And it was like these series of really, really small things that you could see it and you're like, okay, I can get a little further. I can get a little further, right? And ironically enough, that marathon coincided with the first year I was launching the company, right? And I actually don't know if Fearless would be here if I didn't run that marathon at the same time, because it taught me those skills, that ability to like just do a little bit. Because it seems like I got this big vision of all these things that we want to do, and you don't know where to start. And it's just like, just run to the light post, right? Just do a little bit, right? And before you know it, you look back a couple years and you're like, man, we built something pretty cool, right? And so I think it's a lot of the mental toughness that comes along with being really passionate and really understanding why you're doing what it is you're doing. And just, half of it is just like, can you just stick to it, right? Can you just keep that mental fortitude to keep going when everything is telling you that you got to stop?
Definitely. Wow, that was a great story. So when it comes to growth, I know Minority Innovation Weekend, one of the major things that we focus on is helping those tech startup companies, making sure that minority communities are getting the investment that they need, because many times they don't in comparison to other races. So what did you do for your company to start those conversations, to get that funding, to, make yourself stand out?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we've never gotten outside funding. So we bootstrapped the company. So we started, and I registered the company in February of 2009 and jumped out full-time April of 2010, right? So a little over a year of getting going. And I knocked on every single door, right? I asked anyone that was willing to listen, and it's gonna be so awesome. We're gonna build all this cool tech, and it's gonna be innovative, it's gonna be awesome. And a lot of people are like, yeah, cool, yeah, we'll help you. And then they disappear, right? They don't answer calls, and a lot of those things fell through. Again, that's why the marathon, really helped me. It was like, okay, one more call, one more email. And then finally got someone to agree to say, okay, well, I'm gonna hire you, right? And so when I jumped out, we were a company of one. And at that point, we didn't have a lot of money. We're trying to figure it out. We had cut our expenses. We tried to set up the company to be successful. And so at that point, I went and told my wife, and we had a great conversation about like starting Fearless and what it meant, and the sacrifice that we felt we needed to make. And so we ended up selling all our stuff and putting the parts we didn't sell in storage, and convinced my mother to let me move back in the house. So we moved back to my mom's. So not just our basement, the company started. It started my mom's basement. And she told me, she said, all right, look, I'm not going to live with your mama forever, but you got a year. So she gave me a clock. She said, you have 12 months to try to get this thing off the ground. And so being able to cut the expenses and like dump everything that came in, all the revenue back into the company without having to take, much of a salary is what helped to get the thing off the ground. And eventually, and I'm talking, when I say we needed the money, it was, the period ended, on the 15th at 5 o'clock. I was invoicing at 5:01. I was like, I need this money, right? And then enough came in to bring on another number 2, and enough came in to bring in the number 3, and enough came in to bring in number 4, right? And so it was quite organic.
Yeah, so you had to basically put your, many times people have pride. They have a really strong pride that won't allow them to, take a break when needed, or move back to their parents, or, rely on those people that are in their corner. So you had to do that to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, right? I mean, most people you talk to, let me say most people, a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs, right? They're excited about it, and they think they're going to wake up tomorrow with this great idea and they're going to be a millionaire tomorrow, right? And they don't have to put in the work. And yes, there's hustle that needs to happen. And I'm not saying they don't want it. They just, you got to figure out, prioritize, what do you want it more than, right? And I'm not trying to convince people where it needs to be on the stack, but you may want to be an entrepreneur less than you want to sleep. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You may want to be an entrepreneur less than you want to hang out with your friends. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not a matter of do you want it. It's where does it stack in the list of all the things that you want to do. And whatever is number one, number two, that's the thing that gets done. Right. And so being honest with yourself as to, like, where does this thing really lie, allows you to make those sacrifices depending on how bad you really want something. And people just don't, they don't admit to themselves.
Got to come to that realization that, I may not want it as bad as I think I do. If I'm not going to put it first. I got you. So, Fearless also talks a lot about creating software with a soul. And, we have souls, like, you don't hear about companies having souls. So let's talk about Fearless and what it means for the software to, have a soul.
Yeah. There's two parts to that, and there's a pretty instrumental book that I was reading when I was starting Fearless, called Built to Last. It's by Jim Collins, and he talks about what he calls visionary companies. And he did a study, right, over the course of, I think, about 70 years, and he looked at these companies that, the average founding date was like over a decade ago, right, and so over a century ago, over 100 years, and essentially he wanted to figure out, how is it that these companies are still around? So these are big giants like IBM and Marriott and Disney. And what he did was he compared them to other companies in their field, from startup, when they're mid-sized and when they're big, and figure out, what did you do differently that you're still here and they all died, right? And how do you get a company that's around forever? And one thing that was really instrumental about the book was there was a paragraph in there that I sat with for about a month, and it said, what was common about these visionary companies is they always determined who it is they wanted to be before they determined what it is they wanted to sell. And I was like, wait a minute, right? And I kept chewing, because I'd always been taught, like, gotta create the niche, right? Create this widget to sell to this customer, right? And they were saying these companies didn't have that in common, right? And so the essence of who you are and what you wanted to, what you believed in, right? And this why becomes like what makes a company last longer than its competitors. And so that really stuck with me. And so when you talk about this idea of software with the soul, it's really a two-sided thing, right? So we build software that has soul, right? And so we talk about these pieces in which we're working on problems, and, like I said, social justice. We had a really great opportunity to support the Small Business Administration. So we run their digital face, SBA.gov, and the pandemic hits and all the PPP money needs to, like, get out of the door, right? And banks were having a hard time trying to get it out, and the existing tools that were there couldn't do it fast enough. And so we were brought in to help build what was called the Lender Gateway. And so if you went to potentially a smaller bank or community bank and got PPP funding, you used our technology to do that, right? And we powered that. And so being able to support millions of small businesses across the country, like, that stuff is the soul, right? The second part of it is we build software with our soul, right? So we pour our soul into what it is that we do. And so people that tend to be a part of Fearless have a high level of empathy, right? And we really do, right? And as kumbaya as it sounds, like, we really do want to make the world better and, like, make our dent on this space. And so how we do that is through the lens of what we call our purple sauce, right? And it's our secret sauce. We call it the purple sauce, right? And it's about creating belonging internally. So checking the mask and bringing your authentic self to work, which for whatever reason we feel like we can't do often. And we've got to have a version of us at work and another version representative that goes somewhere else, right? And it's like, no, bring all that, right? Having dialogue about stuff that we think is really hard, and tough conversations about George Floyd, about, what's going on in the political space and things that we care about, taking initiative and making impact, right? So those are the four things that really round out the soul and how we really think about problems. And so it's a two-sided, right? We build it with a soul, and we build software that has soul.
Wow. I mean, that's not something you hear companies talking about or focusing on, like making sure that their products, they actually care about them. They're actually putting that love and passion into them. So that's amazing. Is I feel like you built this culture at Fearless that people probably work there and they're like, this is the best job I have. Like this is like amazing. So how did you, when you were hiring these people on, how did you make sure you were building the culture that you wanted in that environment for them?
Yeah, so Fearless is the culture that I would have wanted, right? Coming out of school, and I had a great opportunity coming out of college, and I loved that company. But this idea, I'm gonna really harp into that. This idea of like belonging in like the mask, right? The mask that we all wear, and for whatever reason, it is the hardest thing, right? You are born an individual, right? And we've got this concept of a purple cow that's standing out. It's unique and it's remarkable, but we're all born extremely unique. And somewhere along the line, life just chips away at you like, oh, that's not politically correct. And oh, you're not supposed to wear that. You're not supposed to talk like this. You're not supposed to behave this way, right? And we all like become this cookie cutter thing and this cookie cutter representation. And it's really hard. I remember, and clothes are just one piece of it, but I remember, early on, we were all wearing the suits and the tie, right? All because that's what we thought like you had to do, like in this space, right? And it's a lot less common on the East Coast, right? To have kind of West Coast feel, the shorts and flip flops, and kind of all what you see on the West Coast. It's not common in the East Coast in the government market, right? And so we were all kind of suited and booted, right? And that's kind of the world we live in. And I personally hate that stuff, right? But that's what I felt like I had to be. So that's my mask, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm doing it, and I'm the only, often the only, minority in the room, and trying to figure out how do you fit in and how do you kind of blend in. And I remember a mentor give me some feedback, and I was feeling kind of like, am I an imposter in this space, right? And how do I plug in? I remember him telling me, he said, "You're thinking about this wrong, right? You're using your blackness as it's a negative. It's a positive. Just go in there and make sure, if you're the only one, make sure everyone in that room remembers the black guy with the purple tie, right?" And I started thinking about it differently, and so I started getting really comfortable at being us. And there was an interesting time for us where we got invited down to the White House. This was during the I want to say the Obama administration, and they were doing a little conference for small tech companies and trying to understand how to make procurement better in government. And we had a huge debate, right, on, all right, what do we wear, right? And half like, oh, we got to dress up, and oh, my mama can't see me at the White House, without a suit on, and I don't want to embarrass family or the company and all that stuff. And we did all this back and forth, and we said, let's just be us. And we all went with our T-shirts, and we all went with what felt comfortable to us in that space. And after that event, we had a number of people reach out and ultimately like, who are the folks with the purple shirts? Like, who was that team, right? And we ended up winning a contract on it because they remembered us and we were authentic and we were ourselves. And so like that became kind of the gateway to say, okay, well, now let's keep trying it. Let's keep doing it. And come to find out, everyone felt like, oh, I didn't know I could do that here, right? Oh, one day you come in with some Jordans on. So it's like, oh, I didn't know we could wear those here. And all of a sudden, I like that too. Or, oh, I didn't know we could wear our hair like this. And before like everyone's starting to feel comfortable, right? Everyone's starting to be themselves. And so it's intentional, and we're fairly flat, right? And so yes, we've got roles and there's natural positions and roles within the company, but it's a pretty down to earth place, right? Our expectation is that everyone has a direct line of communication to anyone else in the company. So anyone talk, reach out, DM me, text me, call me, doesn't matter. But we try to have a lot of fun in the organization.
Wow, that's amazing. Because I know when people are themselves and they feel comfortable, they work so much better.
Right.
So your people are probably doing way better work than they would do if they were, having to wear their hair a certain way or, do all these other things. So that's amazing. I know Fearless is one of the tech companies that has made it. Like as a minority, you've made it and you've reached some great heights. And there's a lot of other minorities in the tech industry that are struggling to get there, or many times we're not represented in that facet. So do you think that minorities are behind when it comes to showing up in the tech industries, showing up in tech startups and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm going to correct one thing. So I don't think we made it, right? There's a heck of a lot of things that we still need to accomplish that is still on our radar. And so I feel like we're just scratching the surface of what is to come and what we've got planned. And so I think that we've got work to do. Now, I will say that wherever we are in our growth, it's also our responsibility to how do we get back, right? And I've had mentors along the way, and how do we support other companies? And so, do I feel like minorities are behind? I think that we've always kind of been in the space, right, and have struggled to get support. You talked about struggled to get investment, struggled to if we don't have the right sponsors in the room or people speaking on our behalf, right? All of those things are challenging. I'm not diminishing those, and it is hard, right? It is hard, and it is challenging. I think my encouragement to people is like, keep at it. There is a moment that we are in right now, right? And I don't know how long this moment is last, and I don't know if the pandemic caused it, or the pandemic plus George Floyd and all these racial justice conversations. But right now, it is hot to be in tech. The pandemic is kind of forced that, and it's hot to be Black, right? And so there are people there's capital looking to be deployed. More people talking about where are the women founders, where are the minority founders, in a way that just has never happened before. And so I think that there's an opportunity space that has to happen. I think it also is really important, no matter where someone is in their growth and trajectory, is to help to open doors for other people, right? And so whatever we have is our platform. We take it pretty seriously. To be, if we're allowed to be in certain rooms, like, how do we challenge them? Like, hey, you're talking a good game, but where's your investment, right? You're talking a good game. How are you supporting young Black founders? How are you supporting other minority, and how are you supporting other women founders? And so we have gotten, probably in the last couple of years, like, extremely vocal about that. And we got the microphone, and we're going to yell to anyone that listens, because at the end of the day, we rob ourselves, right? And the country is robbing ourselves by not tapping all of this talent. And I'll give you an example, right? We've had all of this racial justice conversation, and whether people think that every part of our society and our urban centers and all that stuff need investment or not. But I'm gonna tell you this: one of the architects of the Moderna vaccine, Dr. Corbett, is a Black woman, right? And no one asked before they got their shot. Like, I'm not getting a shot. They got in line and they got their shot. And so it was something that was good for society. And so there are brilliant ideas that exist in our market, brilliant ideas that exist everywhere. And shame on us if we think that, Black people, minorities, or whoever, you can go there and they start scouting them for sports when they're like 2, 3, and 4 years old, right? And they understand there's talent there. And it's talent that's going to bring my school. I'm going to win a championship. And there's the same talent that's there in STEM. There's the same talent that's there in tech. And so we all will lose if we don't get really smart about how to invest and untap our entire economy, because other countries are doing that, right? And so shame on us if we can't figure out how to do it well.
Wow, that's actually the president of UMBC, Mr. Freeman. He was talking about that yesterday, about her making that vaccine and all that good stuff. So there's so much that we're doing out there that it may go unnoticed sometimes, but it really does make a huge difference. You said that Fearless is just scratching the surface. So did you see where you are now? Did you see yourself here years ago? Is where you are now the goal that you had right now, or is it should it be more or less? What was the goal?
Yeah, so we're on track right now. I'd say like 10 years ago, did I know exactly like how this would shape up? I didn't know we'd be in Baltimore. I didn't know that this would be we swapped, this would be the logo. So I didn't see that, but I just knew that it was a company that was gonna be driven by impact, right? And so impact is what drove us, and the why is what kept us going. Now we do have a 5-year strategic plan, and we are on track. That goes to the end of 2024. So we're exactly where we had planned to be, and we're going to hit our marks for the end of the 5 years. So yes, I think we are. A couple of years ago, we are where we planned to be. Now we're learning a lot in the process, right, and how that shakes up and evolves, right? COVID has obviously thrown everyone a curve, and what does that mean, and what does that look like? Our strategy, and many of our competitors are remote first companies, right? And what that means is they've always been hiring from everywhere, right? And so they hire from all the states, and we typically don't, right? We typically have been very focused on a locale. So we've got a pretty large headquarter within Baltimore. But the reason we do that is because it's not just important for us to grow and succeed on the tech side and build cool tech. Bringing our community along is part of who we are, right? And part of our DNA, right? So if Baltimore isn't any better as a result of us being there, that is a big epic fail, right, for us. And so that strategy, now we're thinking about how do you scale that? What does that look like potentially in other cities across the country? But there's more that comes with Fearless than just like some cool shiny software, right? So we really plug into the ecosystem to help it grow and help it advance and help it to move forward. And so I'm excited. I'm beyond excited about where we're going and how do we share what it is that we learned and our many, many, many mistakes with new founders in tech and also just founders in general, right? Of things that we can provide perspective on. And we're starting to do that through our incubator and some other things. And so I'm thrilled about where we are, but more excited about where we're going.
Definitely. I also just wanted to ask you, and if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to drop them, but I'll keep going until we get a few. But I did want to ask, what I saw another tweet. It says there's no better day than today to build something new for tomorrow.
Yep.
So when it comes to encouraging these new upcoming founders in tech and everything, what is some of your advice when it comes to some of the struggles that you face? Or if you could even share a time where something went completely wrong, a huge setback, one of those instances.
Yeah, I'll give two pieces of advice, right? On the first quote that you mentioned, we can get stuck so often about like, here's this big vision and this big dream and this big goal. And all right, I got to go do my market research and I got to learn this and I got to go study that. And all that is good. And then we never start. We get paralyzed with all of the information and we never take the step. And so I encourage everyone, like, literally do something today. Like, do one thing today, right? If it's like jotting some bullets down on like, what's the dream and what am I thinking about doing, right? That's fine. Do one thing, like give it 5 minutes, give it 10 minutes. It does not need to be long. And then you say, well, what next? Do something else tomorrow, right? And before you know it, like those pieces will start to build on themselves. I think there's actually, I'm gonna give three errors that I think founders make. The second one is we are so protective of our idea. They're like, oh, I can't tell you, I can't share this. You're gonna steal my IP, right? Or and so we get in a space where we never talk to anybody, right? And it is such a big mistake, right? For someone to steal your idea, right? They got to be as passionate as you are about this thing, right? They got to take it. They got to understand all the dynamics. They got to build a team. They potentially got to go raise funding. They got to figure out how to run operations and scale this thing. And they may not have the same passion you do, right? And so, no, I'm not stealing your idea, right? I can have your perspective, but I'm not signing your NDA, right? I'm just like, I'm happy to provide you perspective, but most people, your first idea is the wrong one, right? And that's why you start and you pivot, right? You will learn something about it. You're going to pivot, test it out, learn a little bit more, pivot. And one of those pivots is going to click and you'll find the right thing to move forward in. But if you never talk to anybody, you'll never get to that first pivot, right? And you'll be stuck in the closet saying, oh, here's this brilliant thing that I can't talk to anyone out. When that's the exact opposite. You're talking about a lot of people and testing out, like, is this thing real? Would you buy it? How much would you buy it for? Is this a service that's needed? Can we set up a pilot, right? But because you need those learnings. And so it's just a critical part of the startup process. I had a third, it disappeared in my head. So it
may come back. It may come back. We did get a few questions though. So someone asked, who do I need to talk to for arranging summer internships at Fearless for our undergraduates?
Absolutely. That's great. We just actually rolled out our first internship. We've had a couple iterations, but our first formal internship program. But if you email recruiting@fearless.tech, you can hit them up. Morella's in there and she's been driving that program. So we just completed our summer internship. We're targeting Morgan, Howard, UMBC, and I think a couple others, but that program is expanding, but we're excited. We learned just as much, if not more, from the 7 interns that were with us this summer than maybe they did, but it was a great experience. But recruiting@fearless.tech and to get plugged in.
Awesome. And then we did have another question. They definitely wanted to thank you for what you do. And they asked if you would be interested in helping Baltimore become a climate tech center, which helps to also promote environmental justice and create green jobs.
Yes. I don't know what you've asked me to commit to, but yes, I'm happy to help. Obviously, we need some more information, but we are also very plugged in helping to stitch together the Baltimore tech ecosystem. So Latoya, who I think is in the chat, is helping to drive a lot of those efforts. But yes, there's a lot of pieces that are happening within the Baltimore tech scene, and we're connected to many of them. And so give us a shout. Feel free to shoot us a note or throw something in the chat, and we can get you plugged in. But if you go to there's a Baltimore Tech Slack, so slack.baltimore.tech. So if you jump in there, there's the citywide Slack. I'm in there. Latoya's in there. Our team is in there. And we can get you plugged in with all the right folks to make that real.
Perfect. And then you did get a compliment here. It says Fearless has great clothes. I'm sure they're mentioning the logo, the colors, just everything that makes it stand out. They said, tell us about Fearless Sports.
Yeah. Great question. So Fearless Sports is actually a separate entity. It is a sister company that spun out about a year ago, and everything that we do is about impact, right? So it started off with, we have our T-shirts and we had our hoodies, and early on within the tech company, we never put our full legal name on there. We just said Fearless, right? And our legal name is Fearless Solutions. And people would always ask, like, Fearless, what's that, right? And it'd always be a great conversation starter. And at one point, we were known as like the purple hoodie company. Like everyone had their purple signature hoodies. We walk around customer sites, and they'd always like stop us and ask. And so the end of last year, end of a couple of years ago, we spun out an apparel company, and we paused for a minute and really started to think about it and said, if this is just a streetwear or fitness sportswear company just for the sake of clothes, then it's not a good fit for us. And we think that the name is hot. The logo looks good, and we think that there's something there, but it doesn't connect with our brand right now, with our ethos. And so we took a pause and said, all right, so what is this, and how does this need to evolve? And as we thought more about it, really this idea that we started to think through was, traditionally when you think of apparel-based companies, right? They have a model, and the model works, right? But it's, let me go find an athlete, let me go find an entertainer, I'm going to work an endorsement deal, right? They win championship. You want to be like them. You buy the stuff, right? And that model has been there and it works. But really started to think through, if you go to these stadiums or you go to these shows, there's a couple people on the stage and thousands in the stands, right? There are thousands of amazing people doing all sorts of amazing work that are also at the top of their game, right? We talked about Dr. Corbett a little bit earlier, but our kids, as we grow, right? We see the billboards of the athletes. And so that's what we think that we need to emulate, right? And that's what we think that we need to do. And there's nothing wrong with them for being at the top of their game, but there's so many other people that are also doing amazing work. And so our idea really is, how do we grab these impact heroes, right? It may be social justice type folks, community-based folks, business people, and make them, right, the partners within our brand, right, our brand ambassadors, and really help to tell their story of how is it that I am taking, step-by-step daily actions, like transform my community in a way that is so impactful and so powerful that people might not know. And I'll give you an example. One of our brand ambassadors, and what we're calling our heroes, is Erica Brisford, right? And so she, got tired of hearing about, the homicide rate in Baltimore, and it was like, somebody's got to do something, right? So one day she's at home and is watching TV and hears about, the Israeli ceasefire, right? And she's like, well, I don't know anything about a ceasefire, but that sounds like a big deal. Somebody should do that. So she starts going around to all the hoods in the city and saying, everybody putting their gun down, we're calling a ceasefire, right? And starts a movement in the city. One person, right, starts a movement. Now, they've been doing it for a couple of years. Data's shown that on the weekends that she calls a ceasefire, there's a 52% reduction in homicides. Ridiculous, right? So one person is literally saving lives across the city, and all of our other heroes are so amazing. And so that's what our brand stands for. We want to ignite, equip, and uniform the impactful. That is what we stand for. And so it's a new line. It's a new streetwear line. So it's at fearless.co. You can go there and learn a little bit more about what it is that we're doing. There's a sister site called Become Fearless that is telling the story of all of these impact heroes. And we're going to pick 5 from each city. So we're starting off in Baltimore. We'll be coming to a city near you at some point. So give us some of your ideas of some hometown heroes you think are that embody that within your particular city. And so would love people's support, their feedback on what looks good, what doesn't. But we're literally just getting started and really excited about this journey.
That's amazing. Another question was, when we go back to that internship conversation, and I saw that Fearless was, hiring as well. So what are some of the things you guys look for when it comes to qualified candidates? Are there certain majors that matter that need to stand out, or, what do y'all look for?
Yeah, so it's more technical capability, right? And so whether you are self-taught or you have a degree, are you competent at your skill set, right? And it's okay if you're not, a 10 out of 10. If you're, 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, you're a junior or you're a mid, that's fine. We just need to know that, right? So how do we now work up a plan to get the juniors to the mids? How do we get the mids to seniors and seniors to be becoming tech leads? And so it's all a host of things. And so they could be developers. They might be people strong in DevOps and release engineering, right? And people that are able to support, our CI/CD pipelines. They can be designers, right? User researchers, right? People that are in that space, product managers, right? Scrum masters within the space, and a host of opportunities on the back office as well. So I think right now we probably have over 40 openings on the site. So check it out at fearless.tech. Lots of openings there. And if you don't see one that's a good fit, there's a pitch your own job opening as well. So go there and pitch your own job. There's plenty of information about us online about where we are and where we're going. So dream up something and say, you know what? I see where you're going. I can help you get there and create something and stand out. And so absolutely no shortage of opportunity. And we are hiring for a pretty massive wave of growth.
Awesome. And then we did get another question. I think this is going to be our last one, so we can wrap things up here. But is all of Fearless work contract based, or does Fearless also do some internal development for products and apps available to any customer?
Yeah, so most of it is contract based. We are doing a little product development through Fearless Farms, which is our innovation lab internally. And so that space is there. Now we have kicked around, like, do we spin off a product arm later? It's funny, you talk about mentorship. Everyone told me starting off, like, don't try to do products and service in the same company when you're starting out. They're both hard. They both require a different focus. They both require a different set of funding level and goals and metrics. And I was like, yeah, but I haven't tried it yet. So we tried it early on. I was terrible at it. And so it was a bad idea. But now we've got a little bit more scale with us. It is something that we're thinking about again and trying to understand the right way to do it. Like, does it happen within, or do we spin off a completely new product arm? But it's something that we're thinking about.
Got it. And got one more question. So I'll just ask this one as our last one. In what ways can other companies partner with Fearless to help advance the tech ecosystem in Baltimore and beyond? What's needed? What is the ask?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think a big thing that's needed, and one of them's gonna sound super simple, is like win, right? Go there and win, and know that we're supporting. There's other people there that support you. And for every founder in this space, wherever you are in your trajectory and your cycle, like, make the time to help and support and mentor and coach other people, right? I know you're busy. I know there's a lot going on. I've got a lot going on. And the people that mentored me, they had a lot going on, right? But they cut the time to answer all of my, dumb questions and advice and feedback and help show me the ropes that allowed us to be successful today. And so I make it a point, anyone that reaches out, and I may not be tomorrow, but if you reach out, I will find the time to talk to you. Maybe a couple minutes, email here and there, but I will find the time, and I encourage everyone to do that. So that's a big piece, right? Be available to other people in their journey is going to be big. I also think that use your voice and use your platform, right? So advocate for this stuff. It isn't someone else's job to speak up for changes that need to happen within the industry, whether it be more funding or more opportunities or customer base, whatever it is not someone else's job. It's your job, and it's your job to also use your voice to join. So it's not 2 or 3 people with a microphone; it's all of us, and that collective voice can help to shift and to move the needle. I say also be active and vote with your feet, right? And so if you see organizations, I don't care how hot the logo is and how cool it might seem, right? If they're not serious about making investments around equity, if they're not serious about making investments around women-based entrepreneurs, if they're not serious about more minorities and Black people in tech, don't go, right? And let them know, this is why I'm not going to work for you, right? And they start hearing that and they realize the talent's not coming anymore. They will shift and they will change, right? And make sure they are very clear about that. We do it all the time. We get calls from people that are saying, hey, we're saying investing. And I go to their site and I don't see any women. I don't see any people of color like on their team, on their board. I'm telling, like, not interested, right? We would only consider working with a company that considers diversity as important as we do, right? And so and being able to tell people that is a big deal. Now, specifically in Baltimore, there are a lot of initiatives that are happening, that are coming together in many organizations that work. So depending on what part of the conversation you're interested in, if it's about kind of just DEI in the industry and holding standards, an organization called Baltimore Tracks that Sharad, Protennis, and EcoMap are kind of leading the effort on. And so we can get you plugged into that effort. If it's about bringing kind of more funding, Techstars is coming to town. There's a lot of rebranding around how do we make Baltimore the first Equitech city. And so Techstars is doing an Equitech startup here. And so Upsurge is leading that effort. We can connect you with those folks. Then there's a lot around STEM and workforce development that lots of organizations are happening. So people are working on different pockets, whether it's funding, investment, etc. But hit us up again, slack.baltimore.tech. So if you go there, you can jump in the Slack, DM me, DM Latoya, we can get you plugged in. But there's a lot of movement.
Awesome. And I think we are going to wrap up here, but this is a great conversation. So much knowledge and information that I'm sure other people that are interested are going to use and, have with them forever. Do you want to plug yourself in? Is there a way people can reach you, your Twitter, Instagram, anything like that?
Yep. I am Delali D everywhere. I think Twitter, I'm Delali Dzirasa, first name, last name. Everywhere else, I'm a Delali D. So hit me up. LinkedIn, Instagram. Doesn't matter. Like I said, I try to be responsive to everyone that reaches out, and I'll try to get you connected to whatever you need. So I'm excited, and I'm cheering for everyone that is listening, everyone that hears this. We're making incremental change, and that's good. But let's bust this thing wide open. And so anything that I can do, anything that we can do to help you accomplish your dreams or break into tech or grow your tech company, let us know. We want to figure out how we can support.
That wraps up this episode of the Disruptive Podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Check us out online at www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.